As business owners, there are so many ways we can market our business and get found by the people who need the products and the services we offer. And one way that right before the internet, right before technology took over everything, has been a consistent way of getting interest and attention, and that's press coverage. Today, we'll be talking about landing press coverage for your business, making the most out of the press coverage for your business, and to talk about that with me today on the podcast would be Leonard Skinner. So Leonard is the founder of Go Geek House, and he'll be talking about this topic with me. So welcome to the show, Leonard.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. My name's Leonard Shiner, and excited to be here.
Thank you so much. So can you tell us a bit about your journey to this point?
Yeah, well, I think that a lot of us start out, as kids, we all start there, right? I think everyone can relate to that. And I was always interested in, like, what was on TV, right? Like, what were the celebrities doing? Why were they celebrities, right? Like on the news, like the newscasters, like, how did they get to be on the news, right? And then millions of people are seeing them. And I was really fascinated with that from like a really young age. And I'm from a small town in central California and grew up there and then went to university in Orange County, Los Angeles area, went to business school. And from there, I went into doing marketing for law firms and did it for business to business firms and consumer firms. So everything from, construction litigation to bankruptcy to divorce to pretty much everything else. And so um, that really gave me a lot of understanding about influence and authority and that type of thing. And so um, coming from like my innate interest in that, right, of just like learning media and how does that work, and then being in law has led me to the point that I'm at today where I do media PR. So we get our clients in print publications and articles as well as on TV. And so I do that media for the legal industry. So um, lawyers are service-based business owners, right? They're taking their knowledge that's in their mind and then getting that out, right? They're advising their clients through their billable hour and their expertise. And so that's who I and my agency help today is service-based business owners. So that could be a lawyer, but it could also be a doctor, a fitness trainer, a nutritionist, anyone who's packaging their knowledge as their advice and then selling that as their business.
Okay, so sorry for the mix. That's Leonard Skinner. I got it this time, right?
Shiner.
Shiner.
No,
Oh,
shiner, like a light bulb.
oh,
Yeah.
Shiner. Oh, nice. I think I'm using the CH for I think that was a mistake. Sorry about that. Okay, so what made you focus on service-based businesses, law firms, doctors specifically, as against going broad?
Well, I mean, just really directly, broad is broke. So if you're serving everyone, you're actually serving no one. I give the example of walking down the sidewalk. So I used to work in Los Angeles and in Woodland Hills. Actually, it's kind of outside the city limits a little bit. But in Woodland Hills, there's this Subway. And I used to walk Subway sandwich shop, not like a train. And so there was a Subway sandwich shop, and I would walk by it, and it was like a little stand that was propped up on the sidewalk, and it was like, you can get a salad, you can get a wrap, you can get a sandwich. And then the next section was like, it can be a meatball sub, it could be a turkey sub, it could be a veggie sub, it could be an Italian, it could be a this or that. And I'm looking at that advertising, right, while doing marketing for law firms, and I'm like, this is hilarious because they're literally advertising to anyone and everyone. Whereas a more effective, like that's what I call awareness marketing, right? They're just like, people just want to be aware, right? I don't care what you want. We're just here. Hi, we're Subway. And the more effective marketing would have been, we've got a special on this specific sub. right? Like there's a meatball sub, right? We've
Yeah.
got a special on this meatball sub, or when you get the meatball sub, you get this extra thing, or we're doing very focused.
Mm,
And so, you're to your ask of why didn't I choose to serve everyone? One, why my background was in law and was in professional services,
mm,
but two, I realized that I couldn't be an expert for my clients if I was serving, you know, SaaS platforms and healthcare entrepreneurs and law and this and that and restaurants like it's different marketing. Well, when we look at professional service businesses, oftentimes it is not things that we are excited to do, right? If we're going to go hire a lawyer, typically not something that we're excited to do. If we're going to go hire a nutritionist, maybe we're excited about that. I would be excited about that. But most people, they're having some problem, and then they have to go to this person and get it solved, right? And so to be able to have that relationship, to be able to believe that the person on the other side of the desk from you can solve your problem, we've got to do a few things. And people always talk about the know, like, and trust factor, right? And so know and like, and then trust. Well, what is trust, right? Usually trust is built over time. So, Peter, you and I, over time, we're going to trust each other more because as our relationship grows, we have a precedent of what we can expect from each other.
yeah.
Well, okay, I can know you in a moment. I can like you in about 13 seconds, but trusting you, I don't know. That's going to take how long? A day if we're in an intensive like army war situation. I might trust you in a day, right?
Yeah.
But most people, that trust is going to take days, weeks, even a few months. And so one of the ways that we look to reduce that trust timeline is that we want external credibility. Now, what is external credibility? Well, Google reviews, right? Like we always look at that, but that is someone else, like a peer of ours, talking about the company or the firm or whatever, right? The service provider, which is great. But we all know reviews can be spiteful, or they can be done by people who are not actual customers. So there's a decent amount of weight given with that when you're just kind of cursory looking at people. But if you're hiring an attorney for your divorce or for your estate planning or for your personal injury matter, right? Like you can't work, these are serious matters. And so we don't have weeks or months usually to create that relationship. Even furthermore, since they are so serious matters, we might know you, we might like you, but that trust factor is really what's going to weigh on our decision whether to go with attorney one or attorney two. And so, as that attorney, right, we have to think about, or as that service provider, we could be a nutritionist, we could be a dentist, we could be a fitness trainer, but we have to think about, in the perception of our client, how do we reduce that trust timeline? And the best way, hands down, to do that is by being featured as an expert in the press. So Google reviews are great. They're from our peers, but everyone has a Google profile. Everyone has that. So how do you stand out from attorney one to attorney two? How do you stand out? One, and two, how do you build that trust factor? And the way we do it is with press. If you can see that someone has been featured in Forbes and ABC and CBS and other local journals, you know that they have a trustworthy and integrous type of firm, type of business, because they've done the relationship with so many other people who are at a higher level. So your potential client is going to see that and respect that and feel comfortable making that next step with you.
Wonderful. I haven't had that know, like, and trust explained that way, that you can know someone instantly, like them in a few seconds, but trust. And I think that is something food for thought, like they say. It's something I haven't heard, and I think that's really great. So now, when you work with these clients on getting press coverage, what are some common blockers you've seen that prevent them from, or some common misconceptions they have about getting press coverage?
So I guess there's a spectrum with everyone. On one side, some clients will think that it's really difficult to get press, and they'll say, like, I don't know how to do that. Isn't that only for like the really top of the class kind of people? Um, and that's one conversation of right of like, is this possible? And what I can share with that audience is that it's a process.
So, for business owners who you've worked with getting press coverage, what are some common misconceptions? What are some common blockers you've seen them have about getting on the press?
That's a really great question. So, for business owners trying to get into the media, get featured in the press, I would say there's a good majority that question, is that possible for them? Right? It's the question of like, I think that that's only for the top 1% of the class. Don't you have to be someone extraordinary to be featured in the press to be quoted? And the answer is no. The answer is it's a process. It's not like FedEx overnight, right? I can't like DoorDash press to you in the moment, but there are steps. There's proven methods. We use those, of course, and so that's what I say to those people, is that it is not an overnight thing, but it is something that anyone can do. Anyone being anyone with an expert level in something, right? You could be an expert dog walker or a dog trainer. You could also be an expert brain surgeon. So it doesn't matter like the level of expertise. Generally, it's more so like very deeply, very specifically, if you have that expertise, then there's definitely news and articles and press that's being written or communicated, and there's an opportunity for us to hop into that story with our client and get them featured. The other side of things that I see is some of the hurdles or some of the blocks that we see for clients coming in is that they think like, well, I'm not that interesting. And I'll tell you that you don't have to be super interesting to be featured. It is so helpful when you have an interesting personality and you're personally interesting and business wise interesting, and you can communicate that in a fun way. Like, that's all fantastic and it makes it much easier. But you can take subjects like very, very dry, like tax law, and we have gotten our clients who are tax attorneys featured in the press. You can take something really um, really unsexy like asset protection, and we've gotten that featured in the press as well, about advising how people to estate plan and protect their assets. And so it's really about the story that we're creating, and that's not something that the client has to do. That's me and my team's job, right? That's the agency's job to look at you as a diamond in the rough, figure out what you like to talk about, how you like to talk about your personality details, and then fit that with the opportunities that we can get you.
Wow. So now, for any business owner, maybe trying to work with you or trying to reach out to or trying to prepare to get in the news, get in the press, are there any specific things that they need to do before they are ready?
Before they are ready, well, we're going to assume that they are a decent level of an expert, right? I'll usually say like attorneys who are in their first 4 years of practice, probably, not to say that they couldn't get in the
Yeah.
press, because they could, right? They're licensed, they're already an expert, right? Same for um, a doctor, like a dentist or a chiropractor or a heart surgeon, right? Even if you were a heart surgeon and you were 4 years out of your residency and you're in your practice for 4 years, you are an expert, yes. And you could get press, yes. But we want some experience under your belt, because we want to be able to pull examples and stories and talk about past patients or clients or customers. And so if you're super new, I would say that a better way to start getting your message out is not going directly to press, but going on podcasting, right? And so this is a podcast. I do both, right? So for me, for my profile, and even for clients, I'll suggest that they do podcasting and do traditional press. But for those starting out, podcasting first. It's a much more accessible way to get yourself featured in a type of media versus what they need to do before getting in traditional media. We need a media bio. We need a headline. We need headshots that look nice. We have to be able to pitch you, right? Because these articles, the TV stations, so the journalists, the editors, they're looking at, let's say you, Peter, right? They're going to look
Mhm.
and they're going to look up your name. And if you look good online, then they're going to want to speak with you. If we look you up and you're a ghost, you're a phantom, then we don't have anything to attach. We don't know how you look. We don't know how you sound. And so we want to be very cognizant that we're going to crawl and then walk and then run. So we're not going to start pitching and get in the New York Times right away, right? We're going to get in local publications, maybe then regional publications, and then over time go ahead and get national and international.
Hmm. Okay, that's actually good. So, can you walk us through the process of probably for someone who is ready, someone who is prepared, is good enough level of experts? Can you walk us through the process of identifying relevant press opportunities for that person?
So there are ways to look at opportunities that already exist. There's a few platforms that do that. It's actually something that I go over in one of the trainings that I do. But for press, the opportunities that exist are in limited amounts of publications, right? So there's journalists who are writing, and then they'll post an opportunity that on a platform that we can all respond to. But in in the greater term of things, what that process looks like is meeting with a PR strategist, meeting and having a discussion about who you are, the topics, and then, it's kind of like Venn diagrams, right? We want to, what are you an expert in? What do you enjoy talking about? And how can we relate that some way to your personal story, right? So if you're a dentist and you're like, I love talking about, oral hygiene. Okay, we can talk about that. Or I might hate talking about oral hygiene and I might be like, everyone should have orthodontia, right? Everyone should get braces. So I talk about braces, right? So we got to figure out what you want to talk about and what's kind of off the table. And then we will match that, look for stories that are already trending, right? So
Hmm.
a lot of our PR client, a lot of our personal injury clients who are lawyers, um, when something happens catastrophic in their state, we'll talk about that because it's an already occurring news story. And we can insert our message into the crack of that bigger story. Other times, if there's nothing happening in the media, then we get to create something, which is where we'll find something interesting and craft the story. And then we're almost acting like the journalist, right? We're pitching the story to the editor and saying, this is something that might be of interest to your readers because everything is for their audience, right? So whether it's the TV audience or the readership of the publication, we always want to be in service of that audience. So yes, we have the motive of getting our expert, our client, our dentist on as being quoted, but we want to make sure what they're sharing is beneficial for that publication's audience. So putting all those things together, we do that, we pitch, and then we're coordinating. Whether that's a TV interview or questions, maybe it's an interview for a written piece, and then ultimately that is published and our client's name is there in the article and with quotes around what they said, or it's an interview about them, like a personal profile, something of that sort.
Amazing. So now there are some clients that might get from maybe press coverage, they might get mentioned in the press when they are not ready or when they didn't even plan to get mentioned in the press. So what's ways that from your experience, what's ways that they can maximize these press mentions so they don't go to waste?
Yeah, that's a really great question. A lot of people forget that phase of doing press is that once you get it in the publication, okay, now what, right? So we always say on the website, we want to go ahead and mention that logo, right, as featured as. But when that is hot, we want to share that with our entire ecosystem.
Hmm.
So if we're featured in the press, we should do an email to our list about it. We should be posting it across socials. We should be leveraging that in our presentations and our conversations, whether you're on stage or in a small room doing a consultation. It doesn't matter where you are. Press is going to support you in your trust factor. And so when you can mention that in an organic way, you position yourself apart from the pack. And that's definitely what we want to be doing.
Nice. Okay, so now for clients who want to maybe keep track of press mentions, press coverage, and everything, are there any tools, any technology that you can suggest that they can use to know immediately when they are mentioned somewhere?
Ooh, that's a great one. So, uh, Google Alerts, like it's a
Hmm.
sleeped on factor from Google. So there's like Google Sheets and Google Docs and Google Analytics and all of these things, but Google Alerts. So what that does is it alerts you when your name is scrubbed, by their bots and they pick it
Hmm.
up. So actually, just today, I got an alert from something that was posted like 6 months ago. I guess they just hadn't scrubbed it. And they were like, hey, Leonard was featured here. And I'm like, what is that? Oh, yeah, that was months ago. But it's a nice way. I've actually had that be the reason why I reach out to some clients or previous clients, right? I'll say, "Hey, I saw you were featured in this." And they're like, "Oh yeah, that was fantastic. That was great." But I'll set up Google alerts for my name, your name, the client's name, anyone who I want to be kind of listening to, right? But
Hmm.
we'll hear it a lot like, "Well, we just need to analyze the market or we just need to like social listening is part of it, right?" And that's one way that I do listening. That's one of my techniques for digital listening or online listening is that I will put someone's name in there into Google Alerts. It's super simple. It's like 2 clicks, and then I will get emails. It's you can set it like once a day, once a week, whenever it happens, whatever. It's just really great. So I definitely recommend that for anyone.
Hmm, amazing. So now, we're talking about press coverage, getting positive press coverage that increases your know, like, and trust factor. But at times, there are times where business owners, the lawyers, the dentists, the service-based business owners you mentioned, there are times where maybe they had a bad experience, a client had a bad experience, and they get negative press coverage instead of the positive press coverage they are looking
Mhm.
for. Yeah. So what's how can they prepare for negative press coverage? How can they mitigate the effects of negative press coverage?
Yeah, most of the negative feedback that would come from most clients is going to be like a negative Google review, right? And for that, it's unfortunate. There's ways that our agency can help address the negative Google reviews. But if you're talking about like negative coverage, like a negative article that's actually published in a business journal, actually in
Yeah.
media, yeah, so there's not really a way to prepare for it. Hopefully, it never happens. But when it does happen, that's the point. That's when crisis communications come in, right? And so we want to strategize a way to minimize the damage, but also leverage the fact that people are talking about us. So we've heard the age old um, all press is good press, right? There is no bad press. I don't know that I agree with that to the fullest extent, um, but all marketing is an effort to be seen. All advertising is an effort to be seen. We want to be out there. We want people to perceive us. And so if we get a piece of negative media, my typical response to that is let's gauge that, right? Like I don't want to be reactive in any of that. I want to be calm in our response to that, because it just shows that we have often we have a more level head than the opposing side.
Yeah.
And so if there's an op-ed, if there's some negative press, usually we will take that for our client and we'll say, pick out the truths, right? Like, what is it telling us? What are all the facts? So in that article, there might be 4 facts, there might be 20 facts. And so we're going to go line by line by line. What are true? What are false? And in our response to that, we're probably going to pitch a story that is, again, for the benefit of their reader. We're going to position it as that way. And we're going to share that we have something that is relevant for them, right? Like there's another, we never want to respond in kind. We never want to just
Yeah.
match them. We want to respond, but then have something more, right? And that something more is where we secure it, because that something more is for the benefit of the audience. And so we are still meeting them where they are, and then the above is for the audience. So what we're meeting them at is we're correcting the record. So all the things that are true, great, they're true. We probably don't want to talk about them, right? So like Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, right? There's two sides to that story. One, there's probably some truth to both sides, right? Like, let's just that's usually how things are.
Yeah.
So if there's a negative press and we're on Johnny's side, all the things that are mentioned in there, all the facts, if they're true, I'm not going to talk about them again unless unless it helps us. But the things that are false, I want to focus on the key things that are false. What can we not live with standing out there without a rebuttal, right? If someone said, I looked goofy today, okay, that's untrue, but I don't really care, right? So I don't even want to spend the time, the airtime talking about it. What are the things that are not true that I cannot live with being out there on the record in the media, right? Because in the future, someone's going to say, well, that was said. And then we want to be able to have say,
Yeah.
yes, but we had this, and so now you can see both sides, right? So maybe that's from my law background that we need to perfect the record. So that's how I handle crisis or negative press. It's risk assessment and really consulting the client about their best options from there.
That's actually a brilliant answer and a good way to handle this. So now, for a lot of business owners, a lot of business owners are really interested in the numbers, in making sure that whatever they spend on has returns. So for a business owner investing in press coverage, how can they measure the return on this investment they make?
So when we make investments, we're always looking at the payback period, right? So I'm going to make an investment, and then how long does it take for me to make my money back? And with press, what we're looking at is building the brand, right? Building the trust of the brand. And so, is there going to be an immediate ROI on press? Well, in some instances, yes. Again, if you get the publication and then you promote it and you leverage it and you email your audience and you use it as a token of your authority, then yes, you're going to see immediate response, right? You're going to see that return. I had a client who was an M&A attorney in Seattle, and he was like, every time I get press, I put it on LinkedIn and I put it out to my network, and I get business from it. Like, I am closing new business by me being in the press. Okay, that was immediate return on his investment.
Well,
But that's not always the case, right? And anyone who tells you that that is, I would question their track record, right? Most of the times we're looking at a longer return period. So if we're going to do press now, I'm not really looking at, and really the client shouldn't be looking at the investment return period in month 1 or 2. What we should be looking at is into the future, right? What I'm worried about is, how is this press? How are we going to build and market with this over time? And what I care about is month 12, 14, 36, month 480, right? We're not worried about what's happening now, but it's exponentially going to increase your efforts because you have the authority, you have the credibility, you have the trust. So if we have the trust, Now we can do sales easier. There's less returns. There's less aggravated customers. Our entire system works better. So, in terms of those numbers right away and what that looks like, it's a longer term investment versus if we're doing marketing, then we want to see those results. We want to see movement pretty quickly.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so for listeners who have listened so far, they're encouraged, they're inspired to get in the press or get press coverage. What's an actionable tip they can implement immediately after listening to this episode to start improving their chances of getting press coverage?
So, two steps. One, I'll give you, it's a bit fun and technical, and two is an invitation to learn a little bit more about how I would tell you to go about getting in the press. So, first one, technical, open up an incognito if you're in Chrome, or a private window if you're in Safari, and Google your name. What comes up? And I'm not just talking about the web results. Go to the next tab, look at the images, look at the videos. Is your social coming up? Is your YouTube coming up? Do you have a YouTube? Do you have social? What's coming up from there? And if what you're getting is just, Bob living in Wichita, Kansas, and he's 43, and it's just like a Spokio, it's just there's no authority with it, right? It's your name, you exist, you're a human. I can tell that you probably are breathing, but that's about it. All right, not where we want to be, right? So from that, where do you go? Okay, well, you should probably have a website. If you're an expert, you need a website. You need something that shows that you have the authority in the space that you're claiming to have the authority in. So, authority, your LinkedIn profiles, right? We need headshots. We need everything to cohesively go together, right? I'm not talking about, LinkedIn optimization here, but we want everything to be cohesive. When someone looks at you, if someone from an editor or a journalist pulls you up and tries to see what you're about, we should have consistent messaging. We can't be a software guy on our LinkedIn and then say that we're a relationship coach on our website. Like those are not congruent. I've seen it. You laugh, but I've seen it. So we want to make sure that we're consistent across the
Yeah.
board. Really define that expertise. So that's what I would do, and just kind of audit with yourself about the Google results, right? So that's step one. Also, step two, I would recommend that they attend a training that I am doing here. I do trainings pretty frequently, and it helps you take your knowledge and transform that into podcast guesting opportunities. So, just like this, I do the system for myself. But podcasting is really the crawling and the walking part of getting in the media. So, can you go straight to traditional media? Yes. I've got a lot of clients that do that. But it is always helpful when you have a couple podcast interviews to under your belt. How do you look? How do you talk? How do you sound? How do you put your words together? And
Yeah.
so we'll pull some of that. As an agency, we want to pull some of that, and we'll package that when we're pitching you to ABC, to Fox, because then they can look and get a feel for you. So not necessary that you have to start with podcasting, but it is a great way to really refine your message also, right? You don't want to get on national television and be like, uh, 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 we want to be smooth with that. So
Yeah.
podcasting is a little bit more forgiving. So um, any listener who wants to take the next step on that, go to podcastguestintensive.com. Again, podcastguestintensive.com. And it's a 1-day training. We take you through your headline, your media bio, and then actually some of those platforms that we kind of touched on earlier about where opportunities are existing, and you can start spinning the wheel. But the hardest part is getting the wheel started. After that, it spins itself.
Amazing. So, for any listener who wants to learn more about being a better podcast guest, which is a way that leads to being in the media, go to podcastguestintensive.com. com. So it will be on the screen, it will be in the show notes once this episode goes live. So thank you so much, Leonard, for coming on the Tech Your Business podcasts.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. And for the guests, I'm sure you've learned something about getting in the media, learn something about press coverage, learn something about monitoring the media for press mentions, what you can do about negative press coverage. We've learned so much in about 30 something minutes. And I thank you again for sharing your knowledge with us today.
We waste no time, Peter. Of course, anytime.
All right. So if you know anyone else who would benefit from this knowledge about getting in the press, about being managing, getting in the press and everything, share this episode with them. And if you want to be the first person to know when we come out with brand new episodes like this on how you can use tech and different things to stay ahead of the competition, don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe wherever you see me, wherever you see Leonard, wherever you hear us. This is we have over 100 episodes on this podcast. We bring out one episode a week. So if you have to listen to everything, you won't be done till the next episode is out next week. So once you're done with this, listen to the next and keep taking your business till next week. Bye for now.